So tonight we're going to be reading the next section in the textbook, chapter 30, The New Interpretation. This material, I think you will find, can give you a lens in which to view all of life. Really, there's really an opportunity here that I think is useful for just about any, well, the course would say what we're going to read tonight is useful for every situation you will find yourself in this life and in time and space. You can view it through this lens, and it's a new interpretation. It's not the old interpretation, it's a new interpretation. So that might not be entirely clear just yet, but it will be as we go forward. Here's a recall what we read in chapter 5. David, I'm going to ask you if you would read.
The Holy Spirit is the mediator between the interpretations of the ego and the knowledge of the Spirit. His ability to deal with symbols enables him to work with the ego's beliefs in its own language. His ability to look beyond symbols into eternity enables him to understand the laws of God for which he speaks. He can therefore perform the function of reinterpreting what the ego makes, not by destruction, but by understanding. Understanding is light, and light leads to knowledge. The Holy Spirit is in light because he is in you who are light, but you yourself do not know this. It is therefore the task of the Holy Spirit to reinterpret you on behalf of God.
Okay, so tonight's material is entitled The New Interpretation. Turns out the Holy Spirit is a mediator that in between interpretations of the ego and of the Spirit, of the knowledge of the Spirit. And how does he do this? He uses the symbols that the ego uses. He uses the same language the ego uses it and reinterprets that language. He does not attempt to destroy the ideas of the ego, but rather reinterprets by helping you to understand the meanings of spirit, the knowledge of spirit. And therefore, because the Holy Spirit would interpret in a way would help you to find your way home to heaven, the Holy Spirit's task is to reinterpret you on behalf of God's plan for creation. To reinterpret you to who? Well, certainly to yourself and to everyone else. David, we have a second part for this.
Perception derives meaning from relationships. Those you accept are the foundations of your beliefs. You may let your mind misperceive, but the Holy Spirit lets your mind reinterpret its own misperceptions. He uses only what your mind already understands to teach you that you do not understand it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is from chapter 5, and it really is the template. First of all, we think we understand. We think we've got a plan. We think we know what to do by ourselves. And then we realize we do not understand what anything is for. That's an undoing of the understanding that the ego has. And then here's the fascinating thing. The Holy Spirit lets your mind reinterpret its own misperceptions. You come up with an idea about your own guilt or your judgment or somebody else. And then you realize that you were mistaken. And the Holy Spirit lets you reinterpret your own perceptions, but now in terms of the light of forgiveness. The Holy Spirit is the mediator between these interpretations of the ego and the knowledge of spirit. So this was all covered earlier in chapter 5 and is going to be specifically focused on in tonight's reading. Okay. Comments, questions? Let's see. Shannon, I see you got your audio working there. Would you be willing to introduce yourself to the group and tell us where you're calling from? Go ahead. Oh, you had it. It looks like we're not working on audio there, Shannon. Sorry. All right, so we'll begin with our reading for tonight from chapter 30, section 7. David?
Would God have left the meaning of the world to your interpretation? If he had, it has no meaning. For it cannot be that meaning changes constantly and yet is true. The Holy Spirit looks upon the world as with one purpose, changelessly established, and no situation can affect its aim, but must be in accord with it. For only if its aim could change with every situation, could each one be open to interpretation, which is different every time you think of it. You add an element into the script you write for every minute in the day, and all that happens now means something else. You take away another element, and every meaning shifts accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Beware the habit of writing the script for each day for yourself, of deciding by yourself and for yourself what kind of day you want, and then scripting it all out in your mind. This habit is very unstable, for it's open to change with every situation and with every interpretation, which is different every time you think of it. So this is highly unstable, and as a result of that, leads to every single day, every situation, you have to come up with a new script, a new interpretation. This makes it extremely complex and obscures your vision from understanding the bigger purpose of life, the real meaning of life and of this world and of your role in it, which does not change. But if you write a script every day, you'll never be able to see the bigger picture. This is the reason why God has not left the meaning of the world to your interpretation, because it would change constantly. Instead, the Holy Spirit offers you a gift. It's very simple. You have to be willing to accept the gift. That's your part. Look on the world with one purpose, changelessly established, and no situation affects this one purpose. Every situation is seen as a part of the one purpose for the world. And we'll get to the specifics of that one purpose, I promise you. But for right now, just realize the Holy Spirit has a plan and a purpose for all of us. It never changes. And every situation you find yourself in fits as a part of that purpose. Are there any questions or comments from before we go on? Heidi?
Yeah, I have a comment. My experience in the past month has been that I have learned that my ego is so cunning, baffling, and powerful that it's exhausting. And I have really spent the past 2 weeks letting go and letting the Holy Spirit and not making decisions and listening to what the Holy Spirit's guiding me to do. And it's so freeing and serene and beautiful. I just can't even explain. I don't have tension and my body's not uptight and my mind's not going like it used to. Because as soon as I go to the Holy Spirit, it takes over. What a beautiful thing not to have to make our own decisions anymore. I love it. Thank you for going through this with us.
Yeah. Thank you for saying so, Heidi. It is true that there's a calm and a peace of collaborating with the Holy Spirit for what happens next. Know that the ego is deeply afraid of that calm and peace, that it is repelled by that sense of lack of anxiety and angst that many of us know very well. The ego is not attracted to that at all. It wants to be addicted to the angst, the anxiety, the uncertainty. And so this is a lovely feeling to be at calm and at peace with what happens next and what happens in this world. Okay, so remember, the meaning of the world is not up to you. God did not leave the meaning of life, the meaning of the world up to you. The purpose has already been written and is being offered as a gift to you. Your part is just to on a daily basis, make room and say yes. David?
What do your scripts reflect except your plans for what the day should be? And thus you judge disaster and success, advance, retreat, and gain and loss. These judgments all are made according to the roles the script assigns. The fact they have no meaning in themselves is demonstrated by the ease with which these labels change with other judgments made on different aspects of experience. And then, in looking back, you think you see another meaning in what went before. What have you really done except to show there was no meaning there? But you assigned a meaning in the light of goals that change, with every meaning shifting as they change.
So we're going to spend a few paragraphs looking more closely at what we've all been doing is relying on our ego to guide us into life's most important questions, and including what will I do with myself today and tomorrow and in my relationships. We're going to look at that more closely and see that there is no solid foundation for the ego to respond from, and therefore all it can do is keep modifying its viewpoint and trying to convince your mind that if a new idea comes along, then maybe that one will be better than the idea you had before. So it's a goals that change and meanings that shift as they change. We will refer to this throughout the Course of Miracles as unstable perception. Perception that has no solid foundation and has no permanent goal and constantly is trying to figure out what will work. Unstable perception, that'll be contrasted to the Holy Spirit's gift, which is stable perception or right-mindedness. So it's takes great humility to practice workbook lesson 11 and admit that my meaningless thoughts are what are showing me a meaningless world. It's not that the world is meaningless, but my thoughts, by being guided by ego, my meaningless thoughts do show me a meaningless world. David?
Only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning, but it must accord one meaning to them all. If they are given different meanings, it must be that they reflect but different purposes. And this is all the meaning that they have. Can this be meaning? Can confusion be what meaning means? Perception cannot be in constant flux and make allowance for stability of meaning anywhere. Fear is a judgment never justified. Its presence has no meaning but to show you wrote a fearful script and are afraid accordingly, but not because the thing you fear has fearful meaning in itself.
Let's deal with the second part of this first, where we're talking about unstable perception that's in constant flux and has no sense of meaning anywhere. And the idea here is that the reason is because your meaningless thoughts are showing you a meaningless world. You wrote a fearful script, a so-called plan or explanation of what you thought would be best for yourself and for others. For some people, this becomes a plan of control, so that you have a plan in mind and then you attempt to control the situation. And that is what we call a fearful script, and therefore are afraid accordingly because the script itself is based on a high degree of uncertainty and lack of confidence. And so it's not the situation you fear, but it's the fearful meaning that you have given it. The script that you've given it brings about the fear. And so the question becomes, since we've done this a million times and know how to do it, Heidi said, it just seems so constant and repetitive. Question is, how do we escape from that? When we escape from it through the light of understanding that the Holy Spirit brings and realize this does not work. Our being the author of our own script does not work. There must be another way, another interpretation. And here's one of the foundations of it. Only a constant purpose can endow events with a stable meaning. Constant purpose. Now, it would be right to ask, what is that purpose? And we have talked about this before. The Holy Spirit's purpose is to bring the entire sonship home, to restore all minds to the awareness of their oneness with God. How does it do that? Through forgiveness and healing and the atonement. It's a constant purpose. You can be sure the Holy Spirit will never vary from that constant purpose. And what's being proposed here is that you join her in that plan, that becomes your purpose, a constant purpose that endows all events with stable meaning. In the absence of that, every event will seem to be random and separate from all other events, and it will be lack meaning. You'll even go to events wondering what you're doing there. What is my purpose here? I don't feel like I fit in or belong. If it's a sort of being out of sorts with things. So we want to let our unstable purpose be reinterpreted as a constant purpose authored by the Holy Spirit. Now, all the specifics of this, we're speaking in the abstract, the specifics of this will show up every day of your life. You say, can you give me an example? The example is your life tomorrow is the example of how do you interpret what your tomorrow is about. And I mean not in advance, but as it's happening, as you get in your car or you have an encounter with another person, what is the purpose of that encounter? We don't need to go into detailed specifics because every situation, every encounter is an example of how this can be applied. By definition, there are no situations where it does not apply. David?
A common purpose is the only means whereby perception can be stabilized, and one interpretation given to the world and all experiences here. In this shared purpose is one judgment shared by everyone and everything you see. You do not have to judge, for you have learned one meaning has been given everything, and you are glad to see it everywhere. It cannot change because you would perceive it everywhere, unchanged by circumstance. And so you offer it to all events and let them offer you stability.
Mm-hmm. So let's remember, forgiveness is the key that opens the door. By letting go of your own judgments of what would be best for yourself and others in the world, by forgiving that, letting it go, it leaves you without an answer and makes it very easy to turn to the Holy Spirit and ask for guidance. I do not know what's in my own best interest, but I'm willing to be shown. Then, having asked, the Holy Spirit can give you repeat for you once again the purpose that she gives. And that is the purpose that will not change. And in fact, the beauty about it is it will stabilize your perception. And Jane, here is the real, talk about the most powerful idea. Imagine every human being sharing a common purpose, or even 10% of the people sharing a common purpose for all their life experiences. It's a shared purpose, one judgment. I'm here to be helpful in the Holy Spirit's plan of healing the world. One judgment shared by everyone and everything you see. Now we have a purpose that unites us together. Before, everybody was trying to figure out their own purpose separately, and everybody was fragmented and going their separate ways. So the beauty of this is it frees you from the belief that you need to be the judge of what's best. The truth is, you do not have to judge. You do need to be willing to accept the judgment the Holy Spirit has is that all are innocent and none are guilty. All are the children of God. You do not need to judge, but you can learn that there's a meaning that is given to everything and everyone, and that it will never change, and that you can bring that sense of participation into every situation. This then makes the world a place of hope, because its only purpose is to be a place where the hope of healing and happiness can be fulfilled. It's a reinterpretation of the way you see yourself and others in this world. And it unites us together in a shared purpose, freeing you of all the needs of being a judge by yourself. What a powerful idea. Now, practice, this does take practice and rehearsal. We are told to study these ideas so that they're clear in our minds, and then practice workbook lessons, and gently, slowly, but certainly, they will unfold right in front of you in your life. Yeah. Comments?
I have a comment.
David, go ahead.
I love the reading today, and particularly in the paragraph, one of the paragraphs before. Today has been a day in which I have written a very fearful script. And the judgments of myself and the judgments of my place here have been very fearful. And when I realize, that the biggest fear is, a lot of people say, oh, my biggest fear is I'm not going to get what I want. God's not going to give me what I want. And truly, my biggest fear is that I'm going to get what I don't want. And that's ego-driven stuff. And it's been very hard for me today to break those chains. And I've been suffering. So this is very appropriate for me.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes dramatic days like you're having today, David, to illustrate that we are writing these scripts on our own, largely unconsciously, and yet they have consequences. A day like today, you can really own that. Gosh, I wrote that script. And that's what keeps me in fear. Let that be a teaching moment. Realize I do these things even on good days, write scripts, because somehow I believe that I'm better off with us walking around with my script, that I would be safer. And these are just on good days. And it takes real intensity to help me square myself with the fact that I've been authoring these things for which I'm most afraid. Heidi?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you, David, for sharing that, because it made me realize that if I keep practicing it, as long as someone like you, I'll be able to see it and admit it quickly and not go days or weeks being in a funk. So I appreciate hearing you share that and admit that that's where you're at. And I'm just so grateful when I can get to that point where it doesn't linger. I've learned something very interesting the past 2 weeks. I learned that when we were in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, we had to write 1 + 1 = 2 500 times, every year in school. It was crazy. And I just learned that the reason being, it's all about practice. And I realized that the more I practice going to the Holy Spirit, and the more I practice the lessons, and even though they're repetitious, now I understand why, because I'll have less and less days where I'm going to be able to be like David and realize, hey, I'm writing a really shitty script today. So I am really blessed today that I have learned in the past 2 weeks practice, practice, practice. Thank you.
Okay, so one judgment shared by everyone and everything you see replaces the need for you to be judged. You do not need to judge. This will free beyond anything else is, and it can be applied in terms of the rules for decision. I will not make any decisions by myself today. I'm not going to be the judge. I'm not going to write the script myself. I am going to collaborate with the Holy Spirit in those decisions. David?
Escape from judgment simply lies in this: all things have but one purpose, which you share with all the world, and nothing in the world can be opposed to it, for it belongs to everything as it belongs to you. In single purpose is the end of all ideas of sacrifice, which must assume a different purpose for the one who gains and him who loses. There could be no thought of sacrifice apart from this idea. And it is this idea of different goals that makes perception shift and meaning change. In one united goal does this become impossible, for your agreement makes interpretation stabilize and last.
Well, so I really see myself in the day I'm having inside this material that David just read here, because of the judgment that my mind had made. There was a proposal given to me by others that I didn't care for, that I interpreted as it was going to take too big of a sacrifice on my part to accept this proposal. My little self interpreted it entirely in terms of what it was going to cost me. And so it was a judgment, and I knew it, but I couldn't free myself of it. And this morning, when I woke up, within 1 minute, I was freed. Escape from judgment lies simply in this: all things have but one purpose. So I woke up this morning and I asked myself, what is my purpose? This is the first thing I did. And I mean, in the first 30 seconds of having gone from sleeping state to, my eyes are open now. What is my purpose? And I said, well, my purpose is help the sonship to reawaken to its knowledge of who they are. And instantly I saw a proposal in terms of that. And my own judgment about it costing me too much, about a sacrifice, was in me. I escaped. Okay. I don't want to say I escaped from it. It was no longer, that judgment no longer had occupied the place it did in my mind. I was free. And so instead, my mind was accepting of what it talks about here, a single purpose, which shares with the world and all the ideas of sacrifice were gone. And there was no longer a belief of others gaining and my losing. There was no thought of sacrifice at all. Instead, it had been reinterpreted for me by the Holy Spirit as fulfilling the purpose of the atonement. And then in this idea, everything shifted. And it was easy. And it was simple. And it was I can tell you it was not intellectual. I had already staked out, my ego had already clarified strongly what it believed to be true. But the answer came instantly without any effort on my part. And it was very gentle. It was not an experience of emotional upset or anything like that. It was really sweet and loving. And I felt, for an hour, I felt a great peace with it. And I was tempted to stay there for 2 hours or just to stay there all morning. It was so, an escape for judgment lies in accepting a single purpose, which the Holy Spirit, think of it like a great tree with a principle of a single purpose without millions and millions of leaves on it, which are the situations and the events and the relations in your life. All those leaves tie back to that trunk, that single purpose that the Holy Spirit has endowed all life with, all the world, everything belongs to it. And so it's really wonderful. I'm sorry, I can't see myself apart from this paragraph right now. It's just like I'm living this today. Heather?
Yeah, I appreciate what you're sharing, Jonathan. And I'm getting the significance of having a single purpose. And I can see that's where my instability comes in when I have more than one purpose. And so then I'm flying all over the place. So to have that single mindedness, a single purpose is really what I want to focus on, this coming week, that what is my single purpose? And even just using the lessons, to keep me stabilized is what I really want to work on this week.
Mm-hmm. That's really good, Heather. That's really good. Susie?
It really brings me way back. I don't have any idea what chapter it was, but what are we going someplace for? I'm not really going to lunch to have lunch. What is my purpose? I'm not going into the market to get potatoes. There's some other reason, what is really my purpose? And it's to help others. Somehow that's my greater purpose. And, the other day I went to this happy hour birthday party and I wasn't there. Well, I mean, in this world, I was there for a happy hour birthday party, but this woman who I barely know sat down next to me and started talking to me about just some of the things she was going through in her life. And I brought up mindful meditation and things like that. And, she was really grateful. And the next morning, I told her about who my mindful meditation teacher was. And the next morning, I woke up to an inbox email from him with all the courses that he was going to have. So I forwarded it to, this woman, and it's like, oh, that was my purpose in being there. And I would not have been cognizant of that if not for this course. Yeah. So, we talked about this. Was it in chapter 5? I don't even know, but I know that I'm never going anywhere for the reason I think I'm going. Right. And that's what this is all reminding me of. Right. How can I be helpful?
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't. Thank you, Susie. It wouldn't surprise me if there were glimpses or echoes of it in every chapter. And a lot of people will say the course keeps repeating itself. Well, yes, it's because it's perfectly integrated, and no matter what we say, we can't get away from what is our purpose here? What are we doing? What are we here for? It implicates everything, including our role in healing. So I guess I'll share one more thing. Having to do with a sense of purpose. So back in the 90s, I listened to a lot of motivational tapes, kind of like business success tapes and all. And they're very, articulate. Brian Tracy and Jim Rohn were very influential for me. And they suggested that I become really clear with a vision and a statement of purpose for my life. And that made perfect sense. You have an idea where you're going, what you want to do. So I did all that. And I journaled on it extensively for months at a time. And I came up with like 70 good ideas. But I had no way of judging which one would be best because I really don't know what's in my own best interest. There were a lot of good ideas, but I could never quite eliminate 65 of them and boil it down to the 5 most important ones. The Course in Miracles then comes along and says, well, there's only one purpose and you don't have to author it. All you have to do is understand. It does require letting go of your preconceived scripts and plans and making room for the Holy Spirit's purpose. And it's that simple. Talk about simplicity, Heidi, and having complexity replaced by simplicity and calmness. And so no longer need all those journals and need all those decisions about which purposes are the most important ones this time of year. It's the same purpose all the time. It really simplifies life, and I'm so grateful for it. Okay. David?
How can communication really be established while the symbols that are used mean different things? The Holy Spirit's goal gives one interpretation, meaningful to you and to your brother. Thus, you can communicate with him and he with you. In symbols that you both can understand, the sacrifice of meaning is undone. All sacrifice entails the loss of your ability to see relationships among events. And looked at separately, they have no meaning, for there is no light by which they can be seen and understood. They have no purpose, and what they are for cannot be seen. In any thought of loss, there is no meaning. No one has agreed with you on what it means. It is a part of a distorted script, which cannot be interpreted with meaning. It must be forever unintelligible. This is not communication. Your dark dreams are but the senseless, isolated scripts you write in sleep. Look not to separate dreams for meaning. Only dreams of pardon can be shared. They mean the same to both of you.
Okay, so we need to look at both sides, looking at the old way and the new way, because they're here in this paragraph. Let's pick up with the old way first. That in the old way, life was seen as a trade-off of winners and losers, sacrifices and benefits. And the old way winds up with a view of the world where we lose the ability to see how the events of our life are related. And so this is a loss of ability to see relationships in events in our life. And so life becomes a series of fragmented moments that seem to have no relationship to each other and lack meaning. They look at them separate with no meaning. There's no light by which the events can be seen and understood. And therefore, after a while, things start to feel hollow. You can go on a $10,000 vacation to the Mediterranean and be treated like a king and come back without any sense of really, other than having been there, what was it all about? What was the purpose for it? And so it starts to become a loss of meaning. And this can spread to any event in any situation. It's a forever unintelligible, and that leads to a sense of detachment and unhappiness. In contrast, the Holy Spirit offers a new interpretation, which is entirely different. You can participate in the same experiences you did before, but now you bring with you the Holy Spirit's interpretation that restores your ability to see relationships among events, where you realize that our function here is to heal and to help others to heal. And this gives meaning to you and to your encounters with other people. And thus, you can communicate with people because you have a purpose for communicating with them. Every situation becomes an opportunity in potential for a holy encounter to occur. Every situation. And so it's a radical reversal from the distorted script, the unintelligible script, the dark dreams, and the isolated scripts of the ego. It gives meaning and purpose and fulfillment to life situations. Okay. David?
Do not interpret out of solitude, for what you see means nothing. It will shift in what it stands for, and you will believe the world is an uncertain place in which you walk in danger and uncertainty. It is but your interpretations which are lacking in stability, for they are not in line with what you really are. This is a state so seemingly unsafe that fear must rise. Do not continue thus, my brother. We have one interpreter, and through his use of symbols are we joined, so that they mean the same to all of us. Our common language lets us speak to all our brothers, and to understand with them, forgiveness has been given to us all, and thus we can communicate again.
So it has to do with the foundations from which we view ourself and the world and all the people in the world. The ego has no foundation, or we would say its foundation is sinking sand, it's unstable. And therefore, any script that it might write based on unstable perception would be highly uncertain. It would, and being uncertain, you'll know it. You will walk with a sense of danger and uncertainty for your interpretations, your understanding. What am I doing? Who am I? What am I doing here? What is my purpose? Will lack clarity. And it says here, a state so seemingly unsafe that fear must arise. It's inevitable under such circumstances that fear would arise. Do not continue to make judgments upon such an unstable starting point. You going back to rules for decision. Do not interpret out of solitude. I will not make any decisions today by myself. Do not interpret out of solitude, or else you will, it's inevitable that fear must rise. Instead, when you find yourself in those moments, turn to the interpreter. Put your faith in the Holy Spirit and trust that she understands the bigger plan and purpose for life. And through her use of symbols, we all can join together. We are here to heal and be healed and restore our awareness of the sonship. And that binds us all together. And with the Course in Miracles, we have given to us a common language that lets us speak to others and to each other and to understand them. And this, it is what communication requires, that we speak a common language with each other that allows us to understand them and them to understand us. If take any of that away and communication breaks down. So I've put together what I think is a summary of some of the things that we read tonight, regarding the ego's way of interpreting and the new interpretation of the Holy Spirit. Remember, everything that you might perceive as being fearful can be reinterpreted by the Holy Spirit. She uses the symbols that we have made in a language that we already are using, but gives it an entirely new meaning. And so before, each of us may have had different goals. Now there's a united purpose that brings about stable perception that we can all share, and share dreams of pardon. And because they unite us all together in a plan that is harmonious with heaven, it results in a lasting shared meaning. It becomes soulful. It helps us to understand the relationship between events, so that life doesn't seem a series of fragmented situations that have no meaning in themselves, but they all relate to one another. It helps us to move from individual judgments of trying to decide for ourselves what would be best and write our own script, to a shared judgment that the Holy Spirit has written. And very much important to me is it shifts us out of the ego's definition of ourself and into an awareness of our true self, our relationship to the sonship, helps us to identify ourselves as members of a creative family, the sons of God, and that helps us to reawaken and makes this world an opportunity to reawaken to the sonship. This is the meaning and the purpose the Holy Spirit has. These are some of the fruits that come out of forgiving all that the ego has made and undoing those lies and having them replaced by the gifts of the Holy Spirit. It's truly an opportunity of a lifetime, and it was made to be shared. So I want to stop and do what we call Hollywood Squares and go around and ask you, what was your takeaway from tonight? What did you get out of today's reading? What would you like to share with us? So I'll take the people that made comments earlier. We'll take call on them first. Heidi, what did you get?
I got that our one purpose is to unite as one with the Holy Spirit through love and forgiveness.
Okay, great. Thank you. Susie, how about you? What did you get?
I got a lot of things, but I got that that I make a lot of decisions on my own, and I need to really, sometimes I wake up every single morning and say the same thing that you said, Jonica, and I go to bed every night and I ask the Holy Spirit to heal my mind. And I have to be a little bit more vigilant in my day to stop making some decisions, on my own, and to just really keep asking for guidance. But I did get out of, and what I've really come to truly understand is that my purpose is to be of help and to be right-minded and to just help others. That I really got out of tonight. And my ego doesn't want me to do that, but I feel much more peace when I'm doing that. So that's when I know I'm aligning with the Holy Spirit. So anyway, I could keep going, but I'll stop.
Thank you. Heather?
Yeah, I'll just say ditto to what Susie said. I agree with everything she said. That's what I want to. And I just want to be more specific when I'm asking what my purpose is. For each event, be more aware, like Susie said, in the day, what am I going to this place for? There's two agendas going on. I want to be aware of that, and then also looking for a bigger purpose for my life. I've been really struggling with that, so I want to turn that over to the Holy Spirit more too.
Great. Yeah, I know this speaks right to some of the questions that you've had. Jane?
I think that for me, it's always to remember that there's no communication between what we see as a person and ourselves without forgiveness. And if the forgiveness is not extended, which is a reflection of God's love, then we are just living in the world of the ego. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. David S.?
Well, I'm still pretty much where I was in terms of what I got out of this, and that fear is a judgment never justified. Its presence has no meaning but to show you wrote a fearful script and are afraid accordingly, but not because the thing you fear has fearful meaning in itself. And just so aware of when my ego is operating and when I'm thinking that I'm supposed to be constructing my life like Brian Tracy or Jim Rohn told me 30 some years ago. I'm responsible for my own life, and whatever I choose, that's what I can have, and all this stuff. The greatest thing Jim Rohn ever told me was get excited about your life. And that's been a theme song for me and what I tried to teach my kids. but obviously I still have a lot of misinterpretations, and I can go down the path of fear and want and lack and lovelessness. So, no matter how hard I work, I can't fix my broken mind with my broken mind. And I need a lot of spiritual assistance.
As we all do, my brother. Thank you for your honesty. David W.
The first thing that struck me tonight was the first sentence that David read. And I don't believe it was section 7. Do you remember where that was from?
Yeah, we read from chapter 5 earlier. That was kind of a recall. I can, yeah, go ahead.
The first sentence he read was about the purpose of the Holy Spirit, and I was trying to find that because it really struck me.
Yeah. So it's does say the Holy Spirit looks upon the world with one purpose, changelessly established, and no situation can affect its aim, but must be in accord with the purpose the Holy Spirit has established. And then the elaboration on that purpose comes in other places. I mean, we did whole sections on the purpose of the Holy Spirit. We know the Holy Spirit is here with a plan of forgiveness to help us to heal and restore our minds through the atonement. I mean, we know that. And that involves not only us as individuals, but our participating in that miracle process with other individuals. So it's simply a restatement of those principles. Thank you, David. Let's see, Kim.
Hey,
Hi.
I got a lot out of everything tonight, but the thing that I really needed to hear was a reminder that the Holy Spirit has a purpose and a plan for each thing that happens. And all of it aids in my purpose. And so in order for me to be able to see that, I have to be willing to replace the dark dreams for dreams of pardon.
Yeah.
Because I can so easily see dark dreams as fear and judgment. And just to know that I have an option to change that to dreams of pardon, which is really atonement, is really a blessing. And I'll also say a miracle for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Shannon?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So just for the introduction, I live in Louisiana. I'm in my mid-40s, and I work a full-time job in cybersecurity for a Fortune 500 company. So I'm relatively busy, new to the Course in Miracles journey. I've been working through the chapters. I'm on about chapter 15, I think it's 15. And I've listened to the audio version of that twice, and I've now made it through the workbook, which took me a little over a year.
Wow.
But what I'd say is that I'm still trying to discern the voice of the Holy Spirit, or what I think is the Holy Spirit, from my own thoughts.
Yes.
Versus even the ego mimicking my thoughts, or, just the ability to discern the difference. And what it's done for me is I find myself just trying to forgive all the time, because I don't really know. I'm sure with time I will have better discernment and better ability to say, well, that was appropriate worldly judgment versus, spiritual judgment. So I'm at a point where I'm just trying to forgive everything. I've got a lot of demands in my life. I'm raising 5 children, in addition to the workload that I have with my career, and lots of classroom opportunities. And if you can imagine, being a fairly ambitious person before I started down the spiritual path, that part of me that has pursued those worldly things, trying to get to a place where I'm okay letting those ambitions and letting those expectations for myself go.
Right. Well, so delightful to have you join us, Shannon, and thank you for sharing some of your background there. And congratulations on making it so far in the textbook and with the workbook. That's really great. I did want to add one thing to your comment about hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit, discerning the voice of the Holy Spirit. There's a very specific instructions in the text that tells us, that speaks to the need for all of us to strengthen the voice of the Holy Spirit within us. And the advice is very simple, is recognize the voice of the Holy Spirit in your brother. Or in other words, start listening for the truth coming from others. And in doing that, you will extend your listening beyond yourself into others. And that in itself will strengthen you more than simply, I'm not saying you do this, but simply try and go within entirely. It speaks to it as the ego would even like to hijack your ability to hear the Holy Spirit. And when you join with another person in hearing the Holy Spirit in them, that just really engages our ability to listen and discern.
Well, thank you for that. I will definitely be more attentive, to recognize it in my brothers and sisters.
Yes, indeed. Great. And please come back. We do offer these classes on Zoom 3 times a week. You're welcome to attend any or all of them. Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, Sundays, this one at 6, and then Mondays at 7 p.m. We're all in the same part of the textbook on all of those sessions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to give anybody else that had a chance. Julie, did you want to share anything that you got from tonight? That's Julie K.
Yeah, I just want the script of the Holy Spirit in my life instead of my script. And I too get not confused, but I'm wondering what is the Holy Spirit and what is me and what is the ego. I want very much to learn that and discern that, because the Holy Spirit has the best life for me to live.
Yes.
And what I get from the Holy Spirit tonight is that my lesson or my purpose is to love and be loved. So that's what I'm getting from the Holy Spirit this evening. And to be good to myself and love myself. Those things that come from the Holy Spirit encourage me in my life and my journey, and to keep on going forward. Thank you for listening.
Beautiful, Julie. Thank you. And I did find where that advice is. This is for Shannon, but really for everybody, because we all need to strengthen our ability to hear the Holy Spirit's voice, all of us. It is in chapter 5, section 3, which the title is The Guide to Salvation, and it picks up about this in paragraph 3 and 4, where it says the voice of the Holy Spirit is weak in you. That is why you must share it, and share it by listening, and paraphrasing now, by listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit in your brothers. And somebody pointed out that one of the benefits of coming together in this group format is that you get to hear other people share their perspectives. And that's not to say that we, are articulating it perfectly or anything like that, but you get to hear that person express to the best of their ability what their truth is, what their understanding is. And if you listen for the truth in them, you are attempting to hear the Holy Spirit in them. And that ability is encouraged greatly. And that's something you can do anywhere. Not certainly, we would not limit that to Course in Miracle meetings. That's something you can do in any encounter, is listen for the voice of truth in others and recognize it and appreciate it and know that you're hearing truth coming from other people. That will strengthen the voice, your ability to discern the voice within you. It says here, the voice of the Holy Spirit is weak in you, but it is possible to strengthen it. It's not weak in itself, but it's limited only by our unwillingness to hear it. Therefore, your willingness to hear it in others will remove your unwillingness to hear it if you're willing to hear the voice for truth in others. It's in chapter 5, section 3, about the middle of the section. So, well, this was lovely way to get together on a Sunday evening. Thank you. Thank you for sharing in a common purpose and a common goal and a common language with one interpreter of the Holy Spirit. We will pick it up tomorrow, tomorrow at 7 p.m. And for those of you that can join us, thank you. For those that are unable to attend, we bless you and we share with you a common vision of our purpose for being in this world. Thank you. Namaste.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all for
Good
sharing.
night, everybody.
Bye,
Namaste.
Jules.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Heidi. Bye, everybody.